Can you hear me, Rabbi? This is Shelley.
Yes, Shelley, hi.
Excellent. Good.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. I forgot to unmute.
All right, looks like we are live streaming on Facebook, I think.
It says you are.
Where does it say?
In my upper right, above me, live on custom live streaming service.
Right. But I have to check if it's actually on Facebook or not.
Ah.
It is on my phone.
It is on your phone?
Yeah.
So you see us on Facebook. All right. I'm going to trust that is in fact happening.
It says Alef Meditative Synagogue is live.
All right. Okay, I see it. Good.
Oy. Let's see if I can find it.
What are you looking for?
Okay, I vote.
Ah, yeah. Just follow the link that Joshua put in the thing here.
I've got it here somewhere.
Last week, somebody had trouble with the link, so I typed out instructions as well.
Mm-hmm,
All
good.
right.
Mm-hmm, good. I'm going to leave the link
Yeah,
on our Facebook feed.
Good morning, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Okay,
The
I'm gonna
link.
mute you now. Wait.
On our Facebook
Good
feed.
morning, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Wait.
All right.
Good morning, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom.
Good morning. I'm going to mute that part.
there we go.
All right, so I'm muting everybody as we begin our study. If you want to share in a thought, in a reflection, you are welcome to unmute yourself and do so, and interrupt at any moment, anytime. We're going to wait another couple minutes to welcome more people who might be able to join us, and then we'll get started. And if just want to, you don't have to unmute. If you want to share a comment, you can also just type something to everyone in the Zoom group chat as well. Some of us prefer typing than speaking, and that's fine. I'll be monitoring the group chat so that when I see something, a question, I will address it to, if I'm able to, and for the whole group as well. So why don't we start with a short meditation and a threefold shalom chant. as we start every meeting and every class. So for just a moment to find your center. And to find your breath. And see if you can relax any place of tension you find in the body. Especially around the belly and the face. Releasing the tightness of our muscles. And with each out breath to simply let go. To just let everything be. And take a breath for Shalom. מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים. Holy One, how grateful I am to be in your presence. You within me, me within you, not two. In this moment, right here, right now. Help me to remember that you are source of all life, that you are existence itself. שהחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. Help me to also remember that in your great mercy and infinite compassion, you breathe within me a connected soul, emerging from the center of your being, an expression of your being. That every breath is your breath. Rabba emunatecha. Help me to know that your faith in each and every one of us is boundless. Amen. Before we begin with studying the Torah, the oral Torah in this case, we have to say the blessing that ends with Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, and which means, Holy One of Being, how grateful we are for all the many paths that you have given us, paths of mindfulness, paths of transformation. And you have given this path of busying ourselves with the words of Torah. You have given us this path to keeping ourselves conscious company through the study of sacred texts. Amen. In Hebrew, Baruch Ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. So I'm excited that we get to continue our journey in the study of Pirkei Avot. We actually are today starting with the third Mishnah of chapter 1. If you are following on the Sefaria website, we are at the little box, the little paragraph that starts with Antigonus. So that's where we are. That's the place we're going to start from today. So I hope everybody has found that page or that little paragraph, that third Mishnah. I just wanted to say, you know, I think the first time we gathered together here to study Pirkei Avot, I mentioned that it was fitting, as we were in fact starting the counting of the Omer, the 7 weeks that separate Passover from Shavuot, that in fact traditionally it is the time that we are to busy ourselves with studying Pirkei Avot. But there is another tradition that actually stretches the study of Pirkei Avot for those of us who cannot complete in the 7 weeks all of the Mishnayot, all of the different chapters, that it is in fact extended traditionally until Rosh Hashanah. So if we're not able to finish this, which it doesn't look like we will be able to since we are only at the third teaching, we'll continue through the summer until Rosh Hashanah. And if we haven't finished at Rosh Hashanah, you know, we'll move even beyond that. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor, but we'll see. So much will change between now and then, God willing. All right. Antigonus. Now that's an interesting name. Antigonus, the leader of Socho, let me see what the Hebrew says. The leader of Socho received the tradition, the oral tradition, from Shimon the Righteous. So we learned about Shimon the Righteous last time. And now we have this new character that joins us with this third Mishnah. And his name is fascinating. It's the first time, actually, that we see someone in the books of our tradition that doesn't have a Hebrew name. That is not a Hebrew name. This is the leader of Socho, and he has a Greek name. I just want to pause for a minute and acknowledge that this is actually happening. So you understand that this leader of our people, who lived in the 2nd century BCE, lives, in fact, or seems to be born at the time where the Greek Empire still has great influence on Jews. It has, obviously, we know through the story of Hanukkah, it has been one of the conquerors of the Jewish land, of the land of Yehuda, of Yehuda, and it had been there for hundreds of years. And obviously, as we can see, Hellenization has taken a hold in a lot of places. I mean, we are even given our leaders at this point in our history Greek names. We see a lot of Jews actually named after Alexander, mostly actually Jews who at this point live in Cairo, I mean in Egypt, in Alexandria, not Cairo, Alexandria at the time, because the Greek influence there is much wider than it would be actually in the land of, I'm going to call it the land of Israel, even though it's really the land of Yehuda at this point. And it is kind of interesting that this leader, an official of Soho, which I read in my commentary, which is outside of Jerusalem and is a section of what is understood to be the tribal land of Judah, which was center south of the land of Israel as we understand it now. So if you want, I don't have a map to show you, but it's kind of Jerusalem. If you know the map of Israel, is Jerusalem and kind of below. That was kind of the land of Judah at the time. So he's from Yehuda. It's important, to us in establishing the lineage that we understand where people are from. And he has a Greek name. I have a commentary from the Maharal of Prague that comments on why it says that this Antigonos received the tradition from Shimon the Righteous. Up until now, when we had a character who was introduced to us, they were the ones who transmitted, right? They were the transmitter of the tradition. Antigonus, is described as receiving the tradition, right? It's a different kind of a stand that he's being given. And the Maharal of Prague says that up until that generation, there was a transmission that was happening, but that generation of Antigonos, it seems, were not as worthy, as far as the great rabbis are saying, to in fact be the transmitters, but they were worthy of receiving the transmission and then sharing it with others. So it's the beginning of this sense in rabbinic Judaism that the later the generations, in fact, the image is that the farther from revelation from Sinai we are, the lesser our ability to truly connect with spiritual revelation, right? There is something about the generations, as the generation go, that we lose in every generation. We lose a little bit of something that doesn't allow us to, because we're so far removed from the revelation of Sinai, that doesn't allow us, in fact, to be channelers of divine energy the way that Moses would have been, and the prophets would have been, and then the men of the great assembly would have been, and so on and so forth, which is really kind of, to me, it's paradoxical, because the way I look at the world is that consciousness is in fact evolving and growing. And so it's interesting that as far as Judaism seems to be telling us it's diminishing, right? From the moment of revelation all the way to now, our capacity to understand and the divine transmission is becoming less and less doable, where in fact we know that we know personally, as we grow from childhood to teenage years to early adulthood to adulthood, we mature, we grow, we know more, we understand more, we evolve, in fact. So it's kind of this, bizarre paradigm that that lives within our rabbis. And it's interesting that, after so many generations, you would think yourself as less and less worthy of the teachings you're sharing. So it's kind of an interesting concept to have our rabbis say. So that's why they're saying that for the first time we're seeing that Antigonus is receiving the tradition. Now, I did a little digging because I was kind of interested in that name. And the meaning of that name in Greek itself kind of, to me, seems to contradict what the Maharal of Prague is teaching here. Not that Antigonus was less worthy than his predecessors. In fact, the name means in Greek, worthy of his father. That's what that name means. So I don't know if it was a stage name. I don't know if it was kind of the title he took upon himself. It's a clear statement as far as he's concerned, right? If that's my name, whether it was a given name or an adopted name, he's claiming, or he's being claimed to be worthy of his father. So of his father, as we know in Hebrew, could be of not his genetic father, but he could be his father as far as his predecessor, his guide, his teacher. And his teacher was Shimon the righteous, Shimon HaTzadik. So I just, wanted to kind of frame that name, which is, very interesting to have, as a Greek name in our story. So if anybody has questions or comments, again, don't hesitate, just interrupt and jump in. And if not, I want to actually start today with with commentaries that are more on the pshat, on the literal level. So I want to actually paradoxically start with reading the whole thing. Now that I have introduced Antigonus. So anyone would like to read, if you get it from Sepharia or from a prayer book that you may have in the Mincha service, anyone, please unmute yourself and read the rest of the Mishnah.
Okay, I'll read it.
All right.
Antigonus, a man of Socho, received the oral tradition from Shimon the righteous. He used to say, "Do not be like servants who serve the master in the expectation of receiving a reward, but be like servants who serve the master without the expectation of receiving a reward, and let the fear of heaven be upon you."
Good. So let's look at the literal level at first, and I'm gonna just put it out there. What comes up for you? Literally, like, just let's not even go into the. We'll have plenty of time to go into the deeper teachings here, but what other literal level does it seems to be saying to us? Does it seem to be saying to us?
Don't do this with the hopes of any kind of reward. Is what I'm getting, and
so there's this thing about reward versus no reward, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't say what kind of reward, but it says that we may be pushed to do this because we have some expectations that some good would happen from it for us, right? We'll be rewarded somehow, right? Okay, Good. Anything else?
Yeah, the fear of heaven be upon you.
Yes.
In this, this is my interpretation. I'm interpreting fear here a lot like awe.
Yeah,
Or
we
the
not, yeah, we could, yeah, exactly. So what about it?
Well, the idea that you're doing this because you follow the way just because it's the way, not because it's going to give you any kind of reward. There's no hope for that. I mean, that's I think the book of Job kind of, to me, if you take off the write-off part, it talks about living a good life for the sake of living a good life, not because you're going to get anything for it. And it's because that's the way of God or the way of reality.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm getting out of this.
So there's a lot of there's a lot of very, very interesting rabbinic commentaries on this, obviously, and there is a rabbi whose name is Tosafot Yom Tov. There's a commentary called Tosafot Yom Tov, who teaches, the finest way to serve God, right, is out of pure love for God. That's what it says. Rabbi Rav Yonah says, we are not to serve in anticipation of reward, instead of for the sake of the master, because if we serve for a reward, it is a deficient, he says, it's a deficient form of service, right? The Rambam says that the Hebrew is pras. It's very interesting. The Rambam notices that the word for the Hebrew is pras. Pras in Hebrew is like in modern Hebrew, it's like a prize, actually. Maybe it's almost a literal translation. To receive a prize, like to receive something concrete, like a bonus point, or a degree, or you receive a prize. That's really what the word is. And in Hebrew, it means a gift, right? And it's a kind of gift one gives a young child as a token of appreciation for something well done, right? So you give a little kid, a lollipop or something because they've done something good. And that's kind of the idea behind that word in Hebrew, which is interesting in and of itself. The Rambam thinks of this as an expression of gratitude, right? That in our service of the divine, we should be the service itself. And we're going to talk about lishma. What does that mean, to serve for its own sake? But the service itself is the lollipop. The service itself is enough. Right? There is nothing else to be needed, and the way to do that, according to the Rambam, is to do that with a sense of gratitude, out of love. Rashi, not yet Rashi. I'll mention Rashi a little bit later, but in the Talmud, in the tractate Kiddushin, which means sanctification, or laws of sanctity, it says there is no reward for mitzvot, right? For acting and doing the mitzvot in this world, right? There is no reward for doing the mitzvot in this world, which is kind of interesting. And I think it obviously follows our Mishnah here. There is no reward for mitzvot in this world, right? And Rashi actually follows that interpretation from the Talmud. And he says, and I quote, "Serve God out of love and let the fear of heaven be upon you, since there is no reward in this world," as the verse teaches. As the word teaches, quote, "that I commend you today." So Rashi is commenting this word, that the sentence, the verse that God pronounces as God gives us the commandments, right? "That I commend you today." And the sages interpret this verse to imply that today is for the performance of the commandments of the mitzvot, and the reward will come tomorrow, right? But what they mean by tomorrow, which is how the rabbis think of this, is in the world to come. So we could talk about what's the world to come. The mythology behind the world to come is it's very complex, but let's say that the shorthand of it is that it could be seen as the afterlife. First of all, it could be seen as the afterlife, could be understood as being the afterlife. It could also be understood as the time of the Messianic time. So there is this whole mythology around Messianic time when Messiah, so again, from the traditional understanding, the Messiah, the personhood that will be Messiah that comes, there will be the resurrection of the dead. That's some core beliefs in Jewish tradition, right? There will be the resurrection of the dead, and that also could be understood as the world to come. And in this case, that's where all the rewards that are not to be for now will be bestowed upon those who have followed the mitzvot, right? So what the teachers are getting at is, which I find very interesting, is that Antigonos means to say that if man longs for remuneration for his divine service, he should not be disappointed if it is not forthcoming, right? One should never feel that all his toil was an exercise in futility. I saw that commentary and I thought that we could talk about that, because it's really fascinating to me the way the rabbis are seeing this. So I'm going to read it again. Antigonos means to say that if man longs for remuneration, for a prize for his divine service, he should not be disappointed if it is not forthcoming. One should feel that all his toil, should never feel that all his toil was an exercise in futility. And therefore teaches Antigonos, be like servant who serve the master, not for the sake of receiving a reward in this world. That's what the rabbis are understanding him to say, right? They kind of add in this world, right? So there's something really interesting about the vision, the way the rabbis really see doing the mitzvot, following the mitzvot. So I'm interested to have your reaction to that. Anybody?
Well, this world can be defined as the spiritual world, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the next world. It could be the spiritual aspect of the world now. But everybody gets some sort of reward for doing good, even if it's your own feeling of satisfaction with yourself, or your feeling of you did a small part towards tikkun olam, universal reconciliation, or something like that. So there's always some kind of a spiritual reward that comes. You don't necessarily.
I appreciate what you're saying. I'm just like, to me, it's fascinating that the way the rabbis actually are looking at it.
Yeah.
Like they're already saying you're doing this because you're doing this. So
Yeah.
that's the concept of doing something lishma, for its own sake.
Yeah.
Right. And it goes very counter current to our everyday thinking.
Mhm.
Right. And they're saying, look, you got to do this, whether you see benefits from it or you don't. It just doesn't matter. We're not, they're saying just don't, like the mindset they're trying to set is don't have any expectations of anything tangibly good happening for you because you are following this path, right?
Yeah, the only thing I can relate to is I started a homeless program at our church where we housed homeless. And some of the volunteers would be very disappointed because it was all volunteer help, would be very disappointed if they were never thanked by the homeless families. They expected to get the homeless families to come in and thank them for doing what they were doing by volunteering to fix them a meal or whatever they were doing. And they would get very disappointed by that and complain about it. So I would always tell them, no, you're doing it for yourself and for God. You're not doing it necessarily for them. Don't expect them to thank you, because some of them are somewhat even offended by the fact that they're receiving help. So their own pride won't allow them to even thank you. And so they, I guess I had to know that there always is something in there for you, but don't expect it from them, or don't expect somebody to give you something material for it.
All right.
Rabbi,
I'm looking at it, it's not just this moment. It's going to be some other moment someplace. So we're not just living right now. We are living for another moment.
Huh. Okay. I get that. I hear that. Okay. And so what?
So don't be looking for the reward right now, because that's not where we're really at. We're more looking, maybe not even looking, but just realize that moment will come at some point.
I think of it in terms of, like, if I do something for my friend and then she doesn't reply in kind, I could, what it's saying is, don't get upset. It doesn't have to be equal. You will get your return in a spiritual form. You're doing it because God said do it, because
Right.
it's a mitzvah,
Right.
not because you're going to get something back in kind.
Rabbi, I actually have I struggle a little with this interpretation of the language, saying, well, actually everybody needs a reward. We're just going to put it off in the future, or in a different world, or a different dimension. And that's not what the language says. I mean, reading in the exception to what, I mean, the language is negative. Don't do it for a reward. It doesn't say don't do it for reward now. And I find that I find that insertion interesting, and maybe there are levels of motivation. The finest motivation would probably be doing it without any reward. Like the motivation of giving tzedakah, anonymously, without any expectation that any recognition. But there's still some value in giving it, with getting some recognition, but it's lesser. And so the ultimate is trying to do it in a selfless way, doing it not because your ego is involved, and some kind of reward to the ego. But because it's the selfless way of being reverent and respectful to the commandments that were given to you, and doing it as you in service, and in selfless service.
I totally appreciate it, and that's why I was mentioning the rabbis like Rashi, who obviously come about 1,000 years later, and Rashi lives in France, in the northern part of France, and Rashi is surrounded by Christianity, and Christianity is very appealing because they have this whole story about the afterlife, right? And especially at the time like the Dark Ages and then the Middle Ages, where things were very tough and really hard. There was something very appealing to know that even in the hard times that you are going through, there will be something beyond this level of existence that where good, that's where goodness is, even if you can't see it here, right? So I think that over time, I don't see neither so my quote from the Talmud didn't mention the world thereafter. It simply just said there is no reward for mitzvot in this world, right? But it's from that Rashi 1,000 years later, expands on that and says, oh, that's what it meant was that because there is reward, but it's going to be in the world to come. So don't despair, right? They were addressing Jews. Rashi also lived during the time of the Crusades. So they were addressing Jews that were really suffering. There was really a hard time to be Jewish, especially in Europe at that time. So I think all of that otherworldly Jewish tradition evolved actually because of the influence of Christianity, and that the rabbis needed to find the Jewish response to what was all around them. I'm guessing their students and the families were coming and saying, hey, the Christians are talking about this, and where is that for us? Because that's a balm to your heart when all is great difficulty and great harshness. But there is talk about the underworld and things like that in even in Torah, but never about the way the rabbis eventually understood it and started to describe it as the world to come. Antigonos, like you say, Antigonos does not mention any world to come. He literally, it's first of all, it says, which is to me, and I keep saying that, the quintessential purpose of any Jewish life is to be of service, right? This is the third Mishnah of the tractate, and the thing that it says is we are here to be servants. We are here to serve, obviously to serve the divine, but to whatever that means, to be channels for the divine, or however we understand that to be. But we also are here to be of service to each other, which I think a lot of the mitzvot are also about, right? We say there's three aspects of the mitzvot: in your relationship with the divine, with your relationship with the others, and in the relationship with yourself. And all of the mitzvot have one of those aspects attached to them. And it says, really, we are literally here to be of service. And we are to be here to be of service for its own sake, without, in fact, any reward. But I was saying at the beginning, this is completely counter-current to our culture, to our way of doing this, right? Because in the culture in which we exist, like kind of Lynn was saying, we have expectations of give and take. We whatever we do, we want the goodies. We do things because we in fact expect to have some kind of a reward, a payback, even if it's just an acknowledgement or a thank you or a pat in the back. Whatever it is we do, we have expectations in dealing with each other and with the world, that in fact there will be um, I was going to use the word quid pro quo, but I don't know. These days, it doesn't sound like the right thing to say. But in fact, that there is something for something, right? It's not something for nothing. And I think that it's looking just at the literal level, it's a radical way to tell your followers, right? We're going to live our lives. We're going to do our practices. We're going to engage the world through the prism of our being servants. And Josh is mentioning in his comments that actually it's not just servant. The word is aved, which actually is even stronger than servant. It's actually slave, right? It could be understood as slave. So slave to the divine. You know, that in fact that is our lot, and that there is no reason to expect life, I'm going to, life to be kind to us, right? There's, again, it's like, why bad things happen to good people. The Mishnah here is telling us because, and there should be no expectation that you being good means that life will be good to you, right? And that's a kind of looking at life that is really, to me, that's really fascinating. And it's really different from the way we were kind of raised to really think about life, right? Good things should happen to good people. If you do the right thing and you follow the rules and you do all the things you were taught, to be a mensch, to be a good person, right? It should be, it should show in your bank account, or you should show, somehow that in fact that is truth. Judaism does not set us up for that. Judaism says that is not accounted for. You live your life the way you live your life, and you're be the best person you can be, right? Express the best of who you are moment to moment, and that's it. That lishma, for its own sake. Just live life for its own sake. Live life for its own sake.
I kind of want to piggyback on that a little bit. Rabbi, you're aware that we've been through some rough circumstances as of late. It's sort of a cascading of, oh, nothing else could go wrong. Oh, yes, it can. Oh, nothing else can go wrong. Oh, yes, it can.
Right.
Like knock on wood, all those things. Like right now we're in a mellow streak, so we're good. But during this time, it did feel a bit like Job. I will say it was very hard. And I think about, like there's got to be a plan. Like what's going on? How? Right. Like what's the other end of this? And I think about this parsha saying, this bit saying, let me actually just slide you over so I can see the wording. It was, and let the fear of heaven, or maybe the awe of heaven, be upon you. When you talk about the awe, like to me, it shifts into the non-dual, because what is. Like all those struggles, all those challenges that were placed before me, I could rail against them all I wanted, and I did at times, but there I was. And I was just there. And I don't know if anyone's ever seen the Joy Luck Club, but they talk about these horrible, horrible things happening, back in Asia at the time. And this one woman is talking about how they were playing mahjong and gambling, and she was laughing amid horror, right? And I've always wanted to be like that woman, like, because if life really sucks, at least make a joke about it, like you've got to get through. And to me, that was sort of like this gratitude, or the, the Yud Hey Vav Hey, is, was, will be. Like, it's just here it is. Just here it is. And so I just kind of want to add that I see a strong link with this to a non-dual perspective. And then on the sort of practical side of life, I played a little clip for my children. So I have 2 kids and I also teach. And the clip I played for my own children, they had this cute little video about the neshama being a gem inside the dirt. And so our klipot, our physical being, is the dirt, and you shine it off. And then they were teaching my kids good morals, perseverance and being helpful. And and then the little clip said, "Oh, and now my neshama is beaming." And even my children were like, "You shouldn't do it for that. That's a reward." Yet I will tell you, it's still a very tangible motivator when they're like definitely deviating of the course. We're all deviating off the course. So, but I thought it was funny that my children, who had very little exposure to this idea, were right on it. So this was Xander and Shane both chimed right in, like that's a lesser mitzvah. I was like, but if that motivates you, please still do it. Anyway, that's what I just wanted to contribute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's really great. That's really great. Rochelle wrote, service is an expression of our true self. And serving then is a manifestation of our divinity. Amen. I wanted to talk about actually, our ability or our willingness or wanting to translate fear of heaven to awe. We have problem with the word fear, and I think it's wonderful to come to understand that word, which is in Hebrew it's morah, but it's from the word yera, which actually can be understood as awe, but is most of the time, in fact, by our tradition and our rabbis, translated as fear, because it is also that. And there is something about the fear of heaven. So we understand fear of heaven as the punishing God, right? So we should be afraid of being punished, and that's fine. That's one way of understanding this. I don't think the fear of heaven necessarily means that. Again, if we're looking at it now from so we're taking off from the pshat a little bit. We're entering now into maybe a little more of a different take on this. If our understanding of what's understood here as heaven is the higher spiritual realm, right? As far as we're concerned, those of us who are on a journey to evolve and to awaken, let's say a meditative journey, a spiritual journey, there is, in a lot of ways, fear plays a really powerful role in that, and it does at multiple levels. Some that are positive, some that are not so positive. I think there is a part of us, because of the fear of heaven, of the fear, in fact, of our big, it's hard to say, of our truer self, right? The fear of, in fact, connecting with that, of the unknown, right? What we know is this constricted, separated sense of self. There's this yearning within ourselves to transcend that. But that yearning to transcend is always bumping into the fear of the unknown, because we don't know what that looks like, right? And this fear is, if I transcend who I am, then where is the I am? Where do I disappear, right? And there's this fear of disappearing, which is akin to really a fear of death, right? And there's good stuff about that, and there's also negative stuff about that. Some of the negative stuff about that is that we keep, in fact, postponing the truth, uncovering the truth, me and you and most of us, we keep saying that to find heaven requires something of us, or requires hard work, because we've been raised to understand that if you want to get something, if you want to get to the finish line, if you want to get the prize, in fact, and again, let's look at that. We need to suffer. We need to pay our dues. We need look at all of those expressions, right? That are part of our common language. It's going to take a long time. It's going to, we have to work on this for many years, and we have to really be diligent in doing all of the practices, and we have to be extremely disciplined. And I'm not really good at being disciplined. So for me, it's all of the things that I'm so not good at, that in fact keep me from, in fact, if sometimes even beginning the practice. Right? I'm not good at meditation, so that's part of it. And a lot of that comes from the fear of knowing that it's already here. Like there is nothing to do but realizing it's already here. But that fear of not knowing who we are, who we might be, right? If we wake up to this newfound sense of identity, of it's not even a sense of identity, that's because it transcends identity, then we keep heaven far away from earth. We keep, it's like the Tsar. May God bless and keep the Tsar far away from us. May God keep enlightenment far away from us, so that we might continue to look for it. We might continue to seek it. We might continue to hard work, to do all the hard work to get there. Hopefully we never get there, because really we really like the work. It's fine. So there is this fear of heaven that is actually real and really true. And I think that's why I don't want to slide directly into awe. And I want to stay with the fear, because the fear is in fact right here with us. And that's why we keep postponing understanding the truth of who we are. And we're doing a really good job at it. So yeah, the fear of heaven is upon us. It is true. It is a fact. And I think when we so quickly move from fear to awe, we also don't see that, in fact, this is also part of our evolution in consciousness. I think we all start with fear. And we are the ones, through our refining of our understanding, through evolving on our spiritual path, that in fact we look out at the miracle of life around us, even though some days it doesn't look so miraculous, because we have this idea that miracles should be of goodness and light. And again, it's only half of the equation. Miracles don't have to be goodness and light. Look at the 10 plagues of Egypt, and who among us would say that those were not miracles, right? And we're surrounded by plagues. Again, I mean, let's look at how we think of things, right? How we again try to box what's going on into black and white, right? So let's keep also an open mind. And it takes time for us to look at the world and not see fear in ourselves, in reaction of the overwhelming nature of this, and to see and in fact begin to practice awe and recognizing the divine in every moment, in every action, in every being, in every breath, in every heartbeat, and really open our hearts to awe. Fear is the contraction of the heart. Awe is the opening of the heart. And I think there is a journey. I think there is a journey from fear to awe. And it's not just like, let's call it awe. I don't think it's right for us to call it awe. I think there is a place for us to see it as fear as well. And there is a stage of our evolution that it was important for us to see it as fear. maybe we have transcended those earlier stages of evolution, but we have to be mindful that it's not all of us have. So I just wanted to put that, in the mix as well. And it's, again, if we are on the journey to awaken, if we are in fact on a journey to wake up, one of the major pitfalls of the journey to wake up is that we want to wake up. So, we talk about beautifully how we want life to be without rewards. Like we hear these words from Antigonos, and we can really understand them intellectually. We really know them. And like Steve was saying earlier, when we give tzedakah, if we do it the right way, we should do it for its own sake, and without anybody knowing who gave, and without us knowing who received, all of that. We know that in our heart, this is the way to go. But even in our deepest spiritual quest of, let's say, waking up, we put that as a reward. Let's not kid ourselves. It's true. It's part of, like, what do we want? What do you want? Why do you do all of those, all of those mitzvot? Let's say, not even talk about enlightenment, but if you and me were more, orthodox in our practice, why do we do all of this? Well, we want to be on the good side of God. Let's not kid ourselves. We want to be seen as good Jews, as we want to be seen as mensch. We want to be, come on, right? But let's take it even a step forward. Even those of us who are on the path to waking up, we place waking up as a goal. We place waking up as the goodies, as the little pras, the pras in Hebrew. It says the pras, the prize at the end of that journey may be as long as it can be, because what we really want is all the difficulties and all the harshness, so that we can really deserve it, because we're not deserving. So let's make it harder on ourselves and do all of those things that will get us there, as long as we keep working hard towards it. But again, it's like, even that we set ourselves for failure, because as long as even waking up is a goal, is an objective, is the cherry on top of the cake that we want to have, that is going to be the obstacle for us knowing it. Because the Torah says it's not over there across the ocean that someone might ask, who will go there and bring it back to us? It's, the Torah says it's right here, it's inside of you right now. There's nothing to get. In fact, the whole spiritual endeavor is to shed, is to let go, is to become less. But we have this idea that, becoming enlightened is becoming more. No, it's not becoming more. It's becoming less, right? There's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing that is going to make us any better, because there's not going to be an us there when we get there, which is nowhere to go. It's like in Buddhism, they define, that moment of awakening as going through the gateless gate, right? But you can only know it was gateless once you're on the other side of the gate that was not there. As long as you seek to find the gate, you're going to keep seeking. So I think there is a deeper sense here of what's lishma. How do we understand lishma? So do you meditate? You meditate for meditating until you realize that nobody is meditating. Let me say that again. You meditate for the sake of meditating until you realize, and actually there's no you realizing, but until you wake up to the fact that nobody ever meditated. That actually is what those who have gone through the gateless gate are telling us. You get up from the cushion and nobody is ever there, right? No one has a separate sense of self. That's what they mean by that, right? It's the separate sense of self, the way you know yourself, the way I know myself with a small s, that dissolves, right? That's what the teachers are telling us. So you meditate all your life with no expectation of anything ever happening, right? Until you realize, or don't, that nobody ever meditated. And it's really hard for us to do that. It's really hard. So that's why it's the third Mishnah, because it's so against all that we have been raised to understand the world to be. There's a comment that I have here, actually from Rabbi Rami Shapiro, who is a friend of ours. When you act for reward, you focus not on the deed, but on the doer. When there is no thought of reward, there is no thought of the doer. When there is no thought of the doer, the deed is done simply with simplicity and grace. This is living with the awe of heaven. I'm going to say that again. It's just gorgeous. When you act for a reward, you focus not on the deed, but on the doer. When there is no thought of reward, there is no thought of the doer. When there is no thought of the doer, the deed is done with simplicity and grace. And this is living with the awe of heaven.
I want to respond to that with an interesting association, totally not Jewish, but it is very appropriate. I've studied some Japanese practices that are Zen Buddhist practices, like the tea ceremony. And what Rabbi Rami Shapiro just said is exactly like the tea ceremony. In the humility of serving tea, the entire appreciation of the moment of your guests, of the beauty of the world, all in that humility. It's exactly what Rami Shapiro said. To me, it's like the tea ceremony just embodies that. And it starts with the humility. Just purely the serving that's all there is. And there is no host, there is no guest. It's all oneness and serving, receiving, and it's beautiful.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to say something? I'm a little bit scared because we still have about 30 minutes and we could even go to the next Mishnah, but that would be earth shattering. So before we go there, I just want to make sure that anyone who wants to ask a question or comment, do so.
I guess the one thing I think is, well, I may be the doer, I'm also the receiver. So there's nobody to thank.
It's a little bit of a take on what Rabbi Shapiro is saying, right? Because he says when there is no thought of reward, there is no thought of the doer. When there is no thought of the doer, in fact, there is no doer, right? And so there's nobody to do and nobody to receive. So his take is, again, Rachel was mentioning non-dual awareness. That's an example of that, right?
Yeah.
It's like there is nobody, like I said, nobody's meditating, right? So nobody's doing. There is just the deed, right? And there is no identifying with the doing of anything, right? There is no identifying with that. And therefore the deed is done exactly lishma, for its own sake, as a non-dual expression of that which doesn't have any you in between. There is no you in between the divine breathing and the body doing. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like
There's no I and thou. There's just
so there's
oh,
you can't think of it. I'm the doer and the receiver. No, that you're neither.
yeah.
Right. That's what the quote was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to add one more piece. I'm in the process of studying something called natural law, which goes back to Hermetic wisdom. It's an 8-hour seminar that I listened to, and I'm listening to again by this guy, amazing person, Mark Passio, and talks a lot about consequences. And as soon as we make a choice, we really do have a choice between doing right or doing wrong, following the evil inclination, which we talked about last Torah study, or following the good inclination. And we make the choice in that moment, but there are consequences. There are consequences. But we don't necessarily know what those consequences are. But we make the choice to follow the good inclination for doing it. And we know which is the better choice because our conscience tells us that. But we can't know the consequences. So there is no reward. There's certainly no reward in the moment. It's that we do it because it's right. So that's what I've been learning from this this study of natural law.
So I'm gonna connect what you just said with what the quote from Rabbi Rami was. The way we understand the good inclination, the Yetzer HaTov, versus the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, is in fact anything we do as part of the Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination, is everything we do selflessly. And I actually mean that literally, the way that Rami just described it, where there is no doer. We do it selflessly in the sense that we do it from a place where there is no self doing anything, right? The empty doer. There's nobody there, right? There's just the deed. That's how that is done. And because of that, it's not a matter of choice. It's a choiceless choice, if you like. The Yetzer Hara, the evil doing or the evil inclination, is the inclination that believes there is a me doing something, right? That is, in fact, there is something, that there is this middle person between God and earth, between heaven and earth, and it's us. And we are the ones doing it. So as far as the mystical Jewish tradition is concerned, the Yetzer Hara is any action that is made believe to arise from the ego, right? So that's the evil inclination. Is the egoic inclination is, and not in the sense of egoic like selfish, but in a sense of egoic meaning that false belief that there is this separate sense of self that in fact is acting upon the world in some kind of autonomous, in this kind of autonomous way. One of the teachers that I like from the Advaita tradition calls it It'll come back to me. I can think of it right now, but it's this the false sense of authorship. That's it. The false sense of authorship. His name is Wayne Lickerman, and he calls it the false sense of authorship. And that is, to me, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. That's false sense of authorship, as if I am the author of the next thing that is happening.
Well, I disagree. I disagree. I think that the paradox is to hold both of those realities at the same time, that we are doing in this plane of action, because there is duality, and in this plane of action, we have effects. And we are given this small I, this ego burdened I, in order to act. That's why we're given it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this plane of existence at all. There would only be the untranscendent God.
I don't know why why are you closing a door? Why are you making a definite statement when you actually was saying it's both?
Excuse me? I don't understand.
So if we follow the Mishnah we are just studying, right? To do whatever it is we do for its own sake. And we do whatever it is we do for its own sake until we realize that there's nobody doing it. Right? It's for its own sake. Again, we can live, and we do live in the make-believe world that has egos. We do. I mean, look at us. You know, we have created this moment that we are sharing together with the assumption that there is a you and there is a me, and we are on a different side of a computer. We live under this the beautiful in the Matrix. For those of us who have seen the movie, we in fact we do. We live in that in that let's say divinely agreed upon theater piece. What I mean by the divinely agreed upon theater piece is that which is looking at me through your eyes, as Albert Einstein is known to have said, is the same entity that is looking at you through my eyes. Right? That which is looking at you through my eyes is the same as what is looking at me through your eyes. It's the same. There's nothing else.
I have no problem with that,
Paulina, let me finish.
Yeah.
That which is looking at me through your eyes is the same that is looking at you through my eyes. There is nothing else, right? I am the dream and I am the dreamer. So I have agreed whichever body I am looking out from, let's say, at this moment, I have convinced myself that what I am projecting on the outside is reality. I have created this world that in Kabbalah is called Malchut, right? The kingdom, correct. The earthly kingdom. I have created this. And I've created this, and I keep projecting it through every being that I am, right? So I have agreed, that if I want to play chess, I have to be sitting in front of myself as my opponent, and I have to make me forget that opponent isn't me, because if I hadn't forgotten that my opponent is in fact just me in a different form, then I would already know all the moves. And why play the game? Because I already know all the moves. So I have to make myself forget that, in fact, though I am looking at creation through every eyes, everywhere, all the time, not just human, but animal and so on, right? I am the dream and I am the dreamer, right? I have to keep myself forgetting it so that I can play chess. If not, there's no reason to play any game. And according to Kabbalah, the reason I am doing this is because if I am everything and I know all the answers, there's no way for me to know that I exist. That's the ultimate principle, the Kabbalistic principle of why creation, why manifesting all of this is that if you are everything, everywhere, and everywhen, if you have no beginning and no end, and there is no way for you to know you are, what you need to create is you create an illusion of something outside of yourself that can look at yourself in order to remember who you are, and in order to know who you are, right? So yeah, I mean, we can keep on playing and we are playing in this illusion that there is a me and there is a you, and that we, in fact, as a me and a you, through our ego and our thoughts and our conditioning, and all the things that are giving us the illusion of free will, then we are, in fact, acting in this world in the way that make a difference and change and stuff. And that's great. Or we can say, I am just a channel for the divine energy, and whatever is moving through this container right now is what is what is being acted upon, right? And the deed is the deed, and it doesn't need a doer, and that's great. And I'm still gonna be the conduit for that deed, and the deed is gonna be done. And then there is no, again, it's lishma, for its own sake. There is no thinking about the consequences of it. There is no needing for reward. There is no needing of anything. It's done.
I completely disagree.
It's Nike. It's like, just do it.
Well, I disagree. I disagree with, if that's your way of understanding the rabbis, I disagree with the rabbis also. I disagree with all of it.
It's so Jewish of you. It's awesome.
Yes, exactly. And that's
perfect.
a thing.
I'm just going to ask you, who is the I that disagrees? No, you don't have to answer. Just look for it.
Well, I see the I as both. The I is the little I and the big I, but there's still, on this plane of existence, there is a Paulina.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
And simultaneously,
but what you describe as this plane of existence is as if there is, it's in opposition to something else. This plane of existence exists as an illusion. So in the movie,
it's so ironic because I spent many years telling people separation is illusion, even before I heard it from anybody else. So it's a conclusion I came to on my own. But the fact that it's an illusion, it can also be, it's okay. It's the paradox. That's why we can't contain it within our rational brains, because it's paradoxical.
Yeah, but let me rephrase this. It's not an illusion as in the sense that it doesn't exist. It's an illusion in the sense that it is its own separate, self-contained existing entity.
No, it
exists. It is, but it is not separate from anything. It is an expression. It is an expression of the divine being, and whatever that means to anyone.
It's expressing in an illusion of separation, but it is always contained. And I totally.
I am the container, and I am that which it contains. Yes. I am not two.
Correct. That's absolutely, my.
But it's not the I am.
And it's more than, for me, it's not as if I am understanding. It's, I know this. My being knows this. And so it's not me knowing, it's pure awareness.
Okay. I want to get to Mishnah 4.
Okay. And I don't have it in front of me. I wasn't able to, I didn't get that. So I'll have to listen.
So if you want, the link is in the group chat, and you can click the link and open it on your computer.
It's in the group chat. Okay.
At the beginning, yeah. So I'm going to mute, and I'm going to just, since we only have like another 10 minutes left, I just want to introduce Mishnah 4 so that we can jump into it next time we meet directly. So if you look at your text, if you are online, I'm just going to read the fourth Mishnah. Just the first line. Yose ben, so I'm going to read it in Hebrew because it's the English, sometimes the transliteration is not really helpful. Yose ben Yoezer, ish צרדה, צרדה, sorry, איש צרדה ויוסי בן יוחנן, איש ירושלים, קיבלו מהם. Yosef ben Yoetzer, a man of, I'm reading the English now, Tzrada, and Yosef ben Yochanan, a man of Jerusalem, received the oral tradition from them, understood here in the translation on Sepharia as Shimon the Righteous and Antigonus. Okay, so I'm just going to spend a few minutes that we have left just introducing who those two characters are and why there is a shift here from, so far as we have seen in the first Mishnayot, there's always one character. Now there is two, because in fact, there is a shift, historically there is a shift in our tradition from having just, one leader to in fact breaking into pairs. So there are going to be, in fact, generations of pairs. It's literally called pairs of leadership. That's what we have. For example, the most common examples known is Hillel and Shammai. Right? There's the two schools. There's always two that are, not going to be sometimes fighting in this case, but sometimes also sharing leadership. So this is the time in Jewish history where the leadership, as far as the rabbis are concerned, referred back to the pairs. So I'm just going to read the commentary that I have here just to set it up. With the death of Antigonus, there is a change in the manner of Jewish leadership. Like I said, it's no longer just a single sage that has the entire authority over Israel, over the people of Israel. Now, and for the next several generations, you will see that there is what's called the zugot in Hebrew. The zugot are the pairs of sages that are becoming the heads of the people. And that's why they are first quoted here. But if you go a little bit further, you will see that oftentimes they are also, like if you go to Mishnah 6, now you have Yoshua ben Perachia and Yoshua. Anyway, I'm not going to go there because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But ahead from this point forward, there are always going to be two teachers. The first of each pair is called the Nasi. The president really is the president of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin, so his function was a civic function. He was to oversee the establishment of the calendar, the Jewish calendar, and he acted really as the political representative of the Jewish community. Right, so it's that kind of really a kind of an executive branch, if you'd like, and that was the Nasi. In this case, the Nasi, the prince, the president is the first one of the two named Yosef ben Yoezer. He's the Nasi here, and the other one is what's called the Av Beit Din. Av Beit Din. Av, like Pirkei Avot, is the head, if you want, of the Beit Din, which is the, you would say the Supreme Court. Is the Beit Din is the legal court in this case, and it was the judicial and legislative, in fact, not just the judicial but the legislative as well. Part of the Sanhedrin. So you had the executive with the Nasi, and you have the legal and therefore legislative branch included in the Av Beit Din. In this case, it was Yosef ben Yochanan. Yosef ben Yochanan. Okay, so this is, I just wanted to I don't want to spend too much time on that next time. I would like to really dive into the deeper teachings here. So I thought, since we had a few more minutes, that I would, share that with you, so that we have the sense of who these people are. It's interesting also that they are from different places, right? One is from the Av Beit Din, the second Yosei, is from Jerusalem. The first Yosei is from Tzreda, and Tzreda, let me see where my notes are. So Tzreda is in Ephraim. I think, hang on a second, I have a little book, a very cute map that will explain where all the tribes were. It's a little book about Jewish history that I use for my bar mitzvah kids. And I remember just now that there are a couple maps, I think, that show where the tribes are. And I'm hoping you'll be able to see. All right, so let's see. Let's play with it, see what happens. Where is my focus? Oh, right here. I think that's clear enough.
That's good. Closer.
So where is Jerusalem? Jerusalem is right here, right? And that was the tribe of Benjamin. Those are important things to know, because they have consequences in Torah. So Jerusalem was in Benjamin. You see Judah, like I said, is south of Jerusalem, right? And Ephraim is north of Jerusalem. And what does it say here? What's the capital of Ephraim? Shiloh. So the capital of Ephraim was Shiloh, and Shiloh was a place where there was a competing temple. Shiloh was a place where there was, when the 12 tribes, so that's when the 12 tribes existed. When we're going to go back again to this. When Nebuchadnezzar invades, he invades the northern tribes, and basically all of those tribes, all the way to Benjamin, are eliminated. We lose them in the invasion. Only the southern tribes, Benjamin, Dan, Judah, and Shimon, are the ones who survive. And they survive because they bribe Nebuchadnezzar and its invading forces. Sorry, not Nebuchadnezzar. It was the Assyrian invasion in 730 BCE. The Assyrian invasion, the destruction from the Assyrian invasion. But up until then, there were competing temples. There was the northern tribes. The kingdom was divided into two. So from Benjamin, Dan, Judah, and so all the southern tribes were called the kingdom of Judah, and all the northern tribes north of Jerusalem were called the kingdom of Israel. So there were two Jewish states, if you'd like. And so the northern tribes had their temple at Shiloh. And it shows why there are a lot of fights between the 12 brothers and Judah. It really influences how we can read the Torah from the political perspective of what happened on the ground, in fact, who got which territory, and so on and so forth. We could really teach the whole of Torah with the map of the 12 tribes and understand why there was so much infighting between the tribes. It's not that they actually had infighting between the tribes, it's that there were political turmoil geographically in the land of Israel, and especially because of the two temples. And interestingly, the temple at Shiloh, we know that its entrance had a golden calf. So it's interesting to understand that as part of the sin at Sinai. But
that's like the joke with your temple, my temple, and the one neither of us would go into.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting, that the golden calf was at the at the head of the temple in Shiloh, and you know the story of the golden calf in Torah, that there's a lot of political reason why he was a golden calf, not just, you know, because that's the only shape they could make with all the gold that they had. Obviously, there is a stab here at Ephraim, and unless you know the politics of it, you don't exactly understand why. Anyway, so I wanted to make sure that I introduced that. So it's interesting that in the context of what I was just sharing, that you have one of the Nasi, right? Is from Ephraim, and the other one is from Yehuda, from Jerusalem. So they're coming from the basically two spiritual centers of Israel. So there's also politically, there's also a reason there that that they are together. So I just want to, you know, give a little bit of politics as part of a Torah study. It's always a dimension that is interesting to keep in mind. All right. Any questions? Anything anybody would like to add to our beautiful conversation today before we close? Okay. Okay, just keep everything and write it down for next time. We're going to close together with a shalom chant. And take a breath for shalom. Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. And take care.